Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Nextv series MENA, live from Dubai. We have with us today Nadine Samra, Chief Business Officer of Wayak. We have Jacob Malhill, CCO of Shahid. I hope I pronounced that right. Jacob.
Yeah.
We also have Maryam El-Sirkal, Head of Majid Kids Abu Dhabi Media. And finally, Kinda Ibrahim, Director of Media Partnerships at Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very excited to have you all on board, as I'm sure
Thanks,
our
Mona.
audience members are. Thank you. Right, we'd like to start with our first topic, which looks at the MENA current demands in content consumption. I'd like to start with Kinda, if you don't mind. Kinda, what is crucial to building a competitive content offer in the MENA region today? And can you please describe your content strategy within the region?
Sure. So what we try to do is we try to understand the current demands and the change of behavior for our users. I'm going to give you a very relevant example. When the pandemic started, we look to see how, as more users flock to the platform, how is their behavior changing and what kind of content are they seeking? And we did that through basically research, just to understand more what content they're looking for, and also just monitoring the volume of interactions on conversations. And we saw, for example, that during the pandemic, people were looking for more reliable information, obviously, by the pandemic, but also, as you know, as people are trying to adapt, they're trying to look for content about productivity, self-improvement, as well as entertaining and fun and light content, and increasing demand for content genres like gaming and other sorts. And we adjusted our strategy accordingly. So what we did is we went ahead and we built partnerships, because we don't produce content ourselves, but rather we partner with content partners such as broadcasters, OTTs, digital publishers, content creators to bring the best content on the platform. So we went ahead, for example, and built these partnerships that caters to what the users are looking for. I'm going to give a few examples. So we launched basically a celebrity news short format show with NBC. We launched a sports show with Kura. We launched a business productivity show with Harvard Business Review, and a sort of a market with CNBC Arabia. So just as an adaptation, and I can tell you, generally, the genres that are most popular on Twitter across the board are news, sports, and entertainment, and the subcategories under that. But we are always on the lookout of how users' consumption habits are changing, what content formats are they looking for, and what genres of content within that are they more interested in.
And what sort of genres are you looking at, please?
Well, as I said, over the as an umbrella, it's really for Twitter, at least, it's like under sports, news, and entertainment. But under that, you have a lot of subcategories. So we're seeing a surge in demand for gaming content, for example. We obviously it depends on the time of year, but for like a month like Ramadan, obviously, which is a cultural phenomenon, people really flock to basically see a recap of the best TV series that they see it on Shahid or any other of the big media broadcasters in the region. They flock to see the kind of recaps for that on Twitter. So it really depends on the time of year and the seasonality. Obviously, football is very, very big for us. But we're also keeping the pulse to understand how those demands and genres evolve, to make sure we do the right partnerships to bring this content onto the platform.
Fantastic, thank you. Moving on to Jacob, please. What are your thoughts, and can you describe your content strategy for the region, please?
Yes, absolutely. We aim to be the leading Arabic language OTT platform for MENA and beyond. So we've gone through quite some development this year, both in terms of our content offering, in terms of our overall strategy between the free tier and the paid tier. But most of all, we've grown tremendously. Of course, strengthened by the Corona crisis, which has driven even more eyeballs to OTT. I think we are in a very blessed situation to be part of the MBC family, and we get a very strong content inflow from MBC. What we have done in that regard is that we have changed the windowing of content quite a lot. So most of the significant scripted shows are now premiering and stacking on SVOD, on Shahid VIP. What we also gone into is a very strong development of Shahid originals, which are starting to take form now. We premiered every week as a Friday from the beginning of the year, and we just premiered number 2, Nimrat Etnain, not too long ago, which are series that stand out both in terms of narrative and visuals compared to the content we've seen in the region so far. We are ramping up next year and aim to have somewhere around 25 original premieres in 2021. So the combination of the strong quality but slightly broader skewing content from MBC and the more targeted, more cable, younger skewing content from our own original slate is going to give us the edge that will make us the strongest regional paid OTT offering in very near future.
Great, thank you. Jacob, moving on to Maryam. Ooh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, great. So what are your thoughts on this? And can you describe your content strategy for the region, please?
Yeah, well, you know, the kids entertainment sector is quite an interesting and exciting. You know, I love that I get to work with characters. You know, you feel like you never grow up, which is great. It's brilliant. And you know, kids are like you know, we undermine them a lot, and we kind of underestimate what they know, what they understand. And so it was really a learning curve for all of us to really understand what they're looking for, to really hear them clearly without, you know, the influence of their parents. And I think this is the big step that we took in Majid. Once, you know, all of our Majid assets were under one umbrella, it really made us aware about how can we reconnect. You know, Majid comes from, you know, more than 40-year legacy from the inception 1979 as a magazine. So we already had kind of the nostalgic element with the adults that we've grew up, but we wanted the generation of this time to kind of feel the same connection we felt. So we had to do a lot of adjustments, a lot of development. You know, we did the first kind of one-off research that's done in the MENA region, where we actually did unaided qualitative research with kids directly without the presence of their families, to really get the answers that, you know, and truthful things that we were taken back by, but really made us realize what needs to change, drastic changes to grab their attention among all the competition and among all the, you know, the content for children that there is. So the three kind of DNA, I would say, that we've worked on for Majid and the strategic direction is, number one, entertainment, because I think there was a lot of thought about, are we edutainment? Are we educational? Are we teaching them? Or are we, it's just fun. It's a fun place for them to really enjoy and just get out of school and feel this is part of them. And that's what most of the big companies really succeeded in. And you know, even when they give education or morals, it can't be the preachy, it has to be embedded with the characters. So we worked so hard on development of the characters and giving them more layers than kind of one-sided character that they looked at. So, and that's number one. Number two is the unique storytelling. So we didn't want to kind of repeat. I mean, we were inspired, and we really looked at content from all around the world, from Brazil to the UK to the US, to really kind of have our own touch, but unique in essence as well. Like, we kind of kept our true identity. But that comes to the third point as well, it's a universal. You know, what we learned, what I love about animation or the kids entertainment world, there is really no lines. There is no boundaries of, oh, this is an Arabic cartoon, or this is a Canadian or a British. It doesn't, kids don't care about any of this. It is really about characters, and it's really about feeling that they're friends, they're part of your life. And that's kind of, I think, a huge strategic shift that Majid platforms took upon them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maryam, for sharing your thoughts. Moving on finally to Nadine. Please, can you share with us your thoughts on this and your content strategy for the region as Chief Business Officer at Wayak, please?
Sure. So Wayak is a video on demand platform that has been in the market for a while now. And we have a variety of content and we target the Arabic audience in particular. So Wayak is part of Z Entertainment, the Indian largest broadcaster, and Wayak is an Arabic product owned by Z that targets the Arabic audience worldwide. And our USP is our definitely Indian content that's dubbed into Arabic. That's the main thing that we really work on and has the maximum traction from the Arabic audience. We believe that the Indian content resonates very well within the Arabic audience and they love it. From different countries, not only in GCC, just because of the proximity and the closeness to the culture, but also in Morocco, in Egypt, in Iraq, and other countries as well. We are not limited to our Indian content, but we also acquire a lot of Arabic content. Also Turkish dubbed into Arabic and some other types of content from dramas to movies dubbed into Arabic or subtitled into Arabic. We also started our production line this year in 2020 and we have produced our first Arabic content, which is called the Shara Chicago or Chicago Street, which is right now coming into Wayak on a daily basis. That being said, we also are heavy producing in the Indian content space, not from a Z perspective only, from a broadcaster perspective, but also from a video on demand side, because we have our other VOD platform, which is called Z5, that targets South Asians worldwide. So we also invest heavily on originals, Indian originals on digital only. So this content might be content of around 6 episodes to 10 episodes that is only produced on a very high quality content produced only for digital. So we get this content, we subtitle it or dub it into Arabic and we put it on Wayak. So the version of this content, which is in Arabic, is always exclusive to Wayak. So we have around 50% of our library that's completely exclusive on our platform. So this content, you will not find it on any other platform. And I believe this is mainly our strength since the time we've started the platform until now. And our strategy is to continue working on these elements of strength as well.
Fantastic. I'd like to also bring Jacob into this particular subject. Speaking of, target audiences, how do you fit their expectations when it comes to your content production, for example?
I think for target audience, I think we have a big task in addressing the younger segments of the population. I think it's probably fair to say that traditional linear media is mature, and it's also fair to say that the younger demos are avid consumers of the international offerings, such as Netflix, of course. And there hasn't been a lot of content that's relevant to the YA categories. So that's an area I find incredibly exciting, and there's a lot of development potential. So we need to focus very intensely on the 15-24 to make sure that we capture the beginning of the mature journey. I also find kids content super exciting, and I find there's a lot of room for development and growth in that area for both for us and of course also for dear colleagues in the market.
And what criteria should be taken into budget and investments when it comes to content production?
I think it's there's definitely a change, because the traditional model for Arabic content has been very much based around the Ramadan viewing pattern. So you had the 30 episodes at fairly low prices, and we're now moving towards TV series of shorter number of episodes. So the production quality and the production price is going up, which is perfectly natural. I think the whole content supply chain is very fortunate with the situation we're in now, where there are a lot of active players across the region trying to break through.
Maryam, would you agree when it comes to, bringing out the inner child and dealing with your genre, so to speak? What criteria should be taken into consideration here?
I mean, of course, I'll be biased towards kids. Of course, this is something, because I really feel it's kind of was always an afterthought. We always, series have always been there. The Kuwaiti series, the Egyptian series, the Syrian. It's like always huge. Turkish as well. With the dub, there was always a lot of thing for this category. So, but the kids really, it was always acquired content. It was always, whether it's Japanese anime or just other kind of, you will rarely find good production quality for kids from the Arab world. And this is really sad. I mean, at this stage, I remember like going to MIPCOM and MIP Junior, it saddens me, because among like 200, 300, amount of content from all around the world, there is virtually zero from the Arab world, which says a lot, because I think there was kind of a misconception about the soft power that this brings, that the kind of animation, and it's not just an animation, a cartoon. It's much more than that, because those kids are growing up with you, and they need to feel that they're part of something. And I realized that with my own kids. So when they realize that all of the cartoon they see, which is great that they see things from all around the world, but nothing resembles them at all. So even the standard of beauty, the power, everything comes foreign to them, because it's not something that looks like them. And I remember, one of the boys, when he looked at Kaslan, it's one of our greatest show, but it did very well, on YouTube and everywhere. And he was just happy that at least one character is wearing what he's wearing. So, and so various many things. So the funding, and another big point as well, funding for animation is so expensive. Like, I can't even begin to compare how expensive it is in comparison to TV production. I've been in TV production for quite a long time. And the amount of talent as well. The Arab world still doesn't have the amount of talent to do animation, whether it's 2D, 3D, 2D frame by frame, all of the animation sorts. So there is a lack in the industry, but it's so powerful, because you create your own superhero or your own characters that kind of transcends just a TV channel or a magazine. It goes to merchandise. That's another thing that, animation in the Arab world is still, in terms of, hasn't really gone to that step. I remember I once talked to Manuel de Souza, who's like a huge, it's an empire in Brazil that owns Monica, and he's a creator. And I told him, how do you sustain the production? Because animation is costly. And he said, it's merchandise. And that's the first time I actually recollection with me, and like, wow, merch, that's the other way around, because we always think, do the show, and then after a while you do merch, and then merch actually feeds your, so there's a whole different dynamic, completely different than TV production when it comes to kids content and sustaining your cost into producing kids content. So I mean, I could go on, but it's just there's a lot that needs to be done in the field of animation with kids.
Moving on to Kinder. Kinder, I know we have a slightly different platform when it comes to Twitter, but are you going into production with any broadcasters, so to speak, to expand on your content? Oh, we've lost you, Kinder. Your microphone is off.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, yes. So before I start talking about production, I just want to touch base on what you were talking about earlier about the audience. And in the Middle East Africa region, it is really one of the youngest audiences in the world. So and not only to Jacob's point, their interests are different, but where they consume content is different as well. So that's why we kind of work with our partners to make sure that we help them basically drive like brand building and reach to their platforms. We're not in the long form. So we're never going to compete with partners on the long form sort of content. So as the opposite, we actually act as a complementary to our partners to help them with sort of brand building, creating the hype. And that's not only just cuts of of a series that's on Shahid or Abu Dhabi Media or any of that, but really to think creatively about how we can create what we call shoulder content that's going to create that hype, that is relevant for this audience, and that's going to drive a brand, that's going to brand and reach and traffic to those basically platforms. The other thing, so when we don't have any plans to go into production, but to Maryam's point, as part of what we do is we work with partners and help them to monetize their content, and that can be just through running pre-rolls on their content on Twitter, just basically additional revenue stream, or basically working with them by matching them with brands to create branded content that lives on Twitter. And this is where merchandise comes in place. It can be branded content in terms of basically like physical product integration or thematic, where basically it's like, I would give an example of Abu Dhabi tourism or Dubai tourism, which basically wants to create a hype about Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and so we create kind of we work with partners to create this content that's going to drive this hype, using creators, using influencers, we borrowing the editorial voices of the premium partners that we work with to create this content and drive reach to the partners, as well as basically revenue opportunities through this branded content.
Fantastic. And Jacob, do you have a similar strategy in terms of engaging social media, bringing on board influencers, making content more attractive, especially on the social networks?
I think we have a well-developed social media strategy that can always, of course, get better and better. But I think our presence on social media is quite extensive. And we aim to do everything we can to build a connection with our audience, both before, during, and after the shows. We of course use social media quite a lot, both with clippings and extra material. So we see it as an incredibly important part of the content ecosystem. And also an incredibly important part of the launch of any kind of content. There's when you work with it for a bit, you clearly have that feeling yourself when something has the potential to go big. It's mirrored very clearly in social media activities. So we monitor that closely across the markets. Yeah, we feel there's a rich connection to social media that's probably only going to be outbuilt as we move forward, because that's where the community is.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And Nadine, would you agree? And what are your thoughts on what we've just discussed with Kinder and Jacob, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think social media is extremely important for all of the media and for the media industry in general, and for VODs in particular, and for TV as well. And for Wayak, our presence on social media is very, very good. Actually, we've been very active since the launch until now. And I think we are very strong on YouTube in particular. We see millions of views on our cuts because we put small cuts there as teasers and promos for people to watch, and then they come into our platform to continue watching the episodes. We have a strong strategy there when it comes to driving traffic and in terms of also content awareness and some of the behind the scenes and other things that we have access to that the audience is always interested in. Of course, so on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we're absolutely there. Now TikTok is being also an interesting part of what we're doing. What is also interesting actually in this year that I've seen that the social media representatives in the region have started to be more active with us as well, in particular. So we've done a large activation with the Facebook during the past 2 months, which had the great results actually on Facebook Watch. And in January, we are doing something, a very interesting project as well with TikTok. And also that was coming from their side, a new idea. Let's see how it's going to materialize. It's an experimentation. I'm always about like to experiment and see how it really turns out to be with us. I think also, partnering with social media is very important to reach the new generation and some of the people or demographics that's very difficult to reach out to or to capture through traditional performance marketing activations and campaigns and so on. So this is I believe it's very interesting for us and having all of this flowing between the social media and our platform is very essential. I don't see them competing whatsoever with us in this regard. Obviously, there are other areas that they do compete with us from an eyeballs perspective and a time watch perspective. But when it comes to content in particular, I think they complement us and we work closely together. And I see the value of these partnerships really with them.
Well, thank you, Nadine. You tapped onto the newer generation, which brings me back to you, Maryam. They're constantly, we have new tools coming to fruition all the time. How do you attract more audience members from an international point of view outside of the MENA region?
I mean, this is something we just started tapping into, because I think ultimately our goal was, Arabic speakers, wherever they reside in the world, but we kind of came to an understanding that in order for this to truly be a proper kids hub, it has to resonate with any kid. It doesn't matter where they live. And that's why with every character and the whole social media as well, it comes to that very critical kind of, we know that social media is not for kids, it's for 13 and above, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Who isn't on social media, right? I mean, I know 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds with Instagram accounts, whether we advocate for it or not, but this is the reality of the situation. Snapchat, TikTok, with all its the news about it, we have to realize this is where they are. Kids are on the digital, and even more so the gulf. Every kid has a phone, has an iPad, maybe from the age of, I would say, 2. So I mean, this is something we can't shy away from, and we have to understand, but we have to also be careful and consider ourselves parents as well, because being a mom, I understand that I would not want my kids to be exposed to certain kind of advertisement. And now, of course, it's much stricter, in terms of the actual advertisement. YouTube with this whole kind of ban was a big issue for a lot of content creators, that, kids content, no comments and no ads. So we have to be even more creative about how do you really, cater for kids without making it seem like you're manipulating them. It's a very fine line. And you don't have this trouble with adults. You can do whatever you want. But with kids, we really have to be smart and specific. And I think that's how we kind of tap into, honestly, it comes back to your content and it comes to being accessible. So we do have a YouTube channel. Of course, we have a free-to-air channel. We have a magazine, that's been running for more than 40 years. And we do have our digital assets and a soon-to-come digital proposition with all of our assets. So we always constantly think about what is okay, what is acceptable, especially with the whole legality of the situation. But whatever you do, we realize, if your content is just bad, it's just bad. No matter what social media you do, it just won't fly. It might reach them, but it will stop there. You need consistency and for it to actually continue being good. So the things that's what we did with one of our shows, for example. We kind of stopped and halted our entire production. We had to take like a clean slate, really were the bad guys, and looked at every single content we have and just killed many of them. We killed a lot of characters. We just started from scratch, and we realized it doesn't matter. It's about, doing many content. One show could make it or break it. It's that simple. And that's how the show Geta, for example, came into place. Because, and this is the what I've learned so much about watching, you know, I'm a huge like Netflix buff and like series buff. So what I've noticed is that for them it's different in the Arab world, because I think what I've learned is that the storytelling is there, and then they get they don't have to be actors, it could be just newbies, and they create it based on his character, you know. It's not the other way around, where I've been used to being in this industry for quite a long time, 15 years. It's always the other way around. It's always, okay, we have this concept and let's just get a presenter who's like good looking or whatever. It just doesn't work that way anymore. People are smart, they want more, you know. So that's what we did with Gedha. We actually created a whole show based on his personality, Salim al-Minhali, which I salute him. He's never been a presenter. So we didn't create him, we didn't make him a presenter. We just took him because he's such an interesting, quirky character. And he's so funny and he's just so lovable. And we just created with him. Like we had focus groups, we sat with him, we involved him in that. And this doesn't happen usually. It's very rare that, because usually it's the scriptwriter on a throne sitting on his own and then the director. But this was a very Pixar style that we worked on, where we kind of just, you know, got the whole brain kind of working and removed ideas, put ideas, until we came up with a reality show. It was inspired, of course, from many shows, but we created our own DNA. You know, of this kid that goes around, and we, you know, expose him to different jobs and really see him raw and how he expresses his feelings. And this is kind of new in the Arab world. We always like to, and I'm sure that Jacob and Kinda will agree, we like to show the good. We like to be like, you know, on TV, we say the right thing, you know, we don't show our other emotions. We're very careful. And we're beginning to open up, but especially with kids, we teach them as parents, let's go chi, you have to say this, that, and we're very afraid of this image that he has to be the perfect child. I think we're very similar to the Japanese in this kind of, you know, I don't see it with Americans or others, but we're very, very careful about their image. So we had to work so hard with Salim and the rest of the kids. It's okay to be you. It's okay to just let it out. So it was a huge learning curve, you know, without, of course, affecting their morale, but just really making good content, I believe. That's.
Have you found it to be quite lucrative, you know, considering you have to start from scratch, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It was really hard because you're kind of defying all the kind of traditional modes of creating content, right? You're not working with celebrities, you're working with unknown faces and unknown scripts. There's we don't work with scripts, it's unscripted. So this is very foreign and very new here. So it was a risk. I would say it was a huge leap of faith. But what we're getting, when I hear kids, I actually literally saw when Salim was shooting in Motion Gate, there was a queue of kids lining up to take his autograph. So we were like, wow, we created, and I think that's the beauty. We want to create stars. We don't want to just leverage on already made. I love it that a lot of stars are, you know, having their own stardom. But we in Majid, I'm so proud that we created stars that they wouldn't have dreamt of. Maybe like 15, 20 kids. So I think this is kind of the story, and this is the beauty of creating content, because ultimately that's what it is about, you know. And that's we see it every day. We see it with our content, we see it with the hype, and we continue to learn.
Thank you, Maryam. That was fantastic. Moving on to Jacob. I'd like to talk about the monetization of reaching maximum profitability. Can you give us some insight on what you do at Shahid, you know, especially when it comes to on subscription-based content? How do you make people pay for content, for example?
I think it's absolutely a good question, because there's it is an uphill fight in this region, as piracy is so incredibly outspread as it is. So making a consumer pay for content is something that takes a bit of convincing. You do it through the content. You do it through your exclusive original, your exclusive first run features. You do it by enriching your kids' universe. And then it's about education, where the convenience of SVOD is incredibly high, opposite to piracy. It always works. Generally, the streaming quality is very high. The amount of buffering and so forth is limited and constantly reducing. So you have a very convenient product, which is also something that is addictive in a good way. You have the freedom from advertising if you so desire. So there's a lot of benefits to SVOD. You can share your account in the household. So I think all those things combined with the still somewhat manageable price for SVOD makes it an easy product to have, especially if you have a product that is complementary, which is the case for us, complementary to the global services, to have a more clean play in the Arabic content area. Then you have a product that will become very strong. And I think also adding to that is it's somewhat complementing what Maryam said before. It's about it's about being bold and ambitious when it comes to the stories. I will not take for given that we should just do what has been done all the time. We need to experiment with genres. We need to experiment with the ambition level of the stories. Of course, we need to be aware of the cultural and moral limitations or opportunities that the region offers. So within that, I think you can do a lot to offer a product that becomes much more relevant, because I think that is an incredible strength. Also youth, they don't see themselves to the extent that they want to. Yes, it's cool to watch Riverdale or whatnot on Netflix, but it's not a reflection of the reality that they live in and they grow up in. And I think this market and so many other markets has learned us that, of course, we are living in a world that is globalizing at increasing speed. But there is that whole sense of home, Heimat, that is vital for you as a human being. And I think that's also what helps us in the journey from the MENA region into the outside world. We are very straightforward Arabic proposition, and the diaspora is a strong, sizable diaspora. So this, I think we can take it content-wise to the next level, and I think we can speak to our dear customers in a very different way than someone from Silicon Valley can do.
Well, speaking of taking risks, Kinder, how are advertisers taking risks these days with Twitter, especially during such challenging times?
Actually, so I want to talk about what efforts we do to make sure that from an ads policy perspective, we're always evolving to make sure that basically from the users see ads that are relevant, but also that are culturally acceptable. But also from an advertiser perspective, there are multiple products for them to advertise on, or multiple formats. But one of the formats that is actually extremely brand safe is basically the format where it's through content association and these content partnerships, because we really work with hand-selected content partners to make sure that advertisers are able to associate with this content to drive message association, to drive lift in a brand, but also to make sure it's a very safe environment to be in.
Great, thank you very much, Kinder. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we only have a few minutes left for this particular panel discussion. I'm going to try and wrap this up on a final note with Nadine, if you don't mind. Do you see other opportunities emerging in the future to grow the value of content within the region, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we look at the research when it comes to the market size, when it comes to AVOD, SVOD in MENA region and globally, actually, we see that it's growing exponentially during the coming 5 years, as an example. But that being said, also, if you just look into the numbers of hours watched per person per day. It's just increasing month on month. So the opportunity is definitely there. The content creators are also there. There's a lot of attention on creating original content and having them on platforms, monetizing them in different ways, whether it is through advertising or content associations, which, by the way, something that I really like what Kinda was saying, because we really, we have been focusing on this for quite some time right now, and we achieve brilliant results when it comes to content sponsorships and content integration within our content. And maybe I'm diverting now from the question, but this is very key for us, because very few players actually have access and own their content. And in order to do such an integration or sponsorships on content level, you need to have ownership of that content. And there are very few players who have this flexibility and have the flexibility on the platform also to accommodate such requests. And we're happy to be one of these very few players in the market who can do these things. So yeah, I mean, from a market size perspective, the story is very positive when it comes to digital media in general, when it comes to social media association as well. On YouTube, as an example, which is a nice figure that I'm really happy to share with you, is that we have 3 million subscribers in YouTube. The reason why this is interesting, because all of our subscribers are organic. We have never spent any penny on acquiring users on YouTube, which tells you a lot when it comes about our story as Wayak, when it comes to the content that we host, of the uniqueness of the content and the way that we do our promos and the way that we promote our content and we drive traffic back to Wayak. So all of this in terms of the chain of how we look at the operational aspect of the content, from having it on the platform and capturing the user, acquiring the users, make them watch the content and monetizing that content. I think we have a bit of a success story here when it comes to Wayak. That's there.
Congratulations, that's wonderful to know and very unique, I have to say. Maryam, your thoughts, last couple of minutes as well, please. The future of your content strategy, please.
I mean, I'm very optimistic. It's I can see 2021. Fingers crossed. It's going to be a positive year. We've learned so much. We're looking always for partnership. Co-production. We're looking to really expand Majid into a true hub for kids content. We're the only original IP kids characters content, whatever. So we're always keen to discuss and talk and get to know people, and our ultimate goal and our aim is that it transcends, and I hear about it in Japan or in Brazil and all those places, and hopefully inshallah with our persistence and just the the right direction and the passion and that myself and the team has, we can see that we're going to reach inshallah that level.
Jacob, and your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I'm also incredibly positive. I think the development of digital is moving very fast, and I think we're going to see a further increase of speed as more content becomes available on OTT services or on digital media. I think the audience is now starting to see the beginning of what a content offering is going to look like in the future, and I'm absolutely sure they're going to dive in, and I think it's a really great thing, because I think the storytelling coming out of the region is going to manifold, and it's going to be so incredibly positive for both audiences, but also for the creative industry. I think there's not one single area, that being documentaries, kids, factual, TV series, features, that's not going to in quality and also in volume. So I think it's a year. Was some echo there.
And Kinda, are you just as optimistic?
Absolutely. I mean, look, 2020 was a tough year, but if anything, we saw, as Jacob mentioned before, a flock of users to a digital platform. I'm really excited about 2021. We're going to continue to basically look to innovate from a product perspective to make it easier for users to find the content that they're looking for, but also in our partnerships and specifically driving innovative formats that is relevant to our audience, but also helps our partners grow the reach and further monetize their content.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm afraid we've already gone past a minute already. So thank you once again to Kinder, Jacob, Maryam, and Nadine for our wonderful panel discussion. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you to our audience members. I believe we don't have any questions so far, but I'm sure audience members will be in touch via the Nextv series platform. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Wishing you all the best and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Mona.